Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Nick Shesky. Thanks for joining us today. As the Omicron variant surges, top health officials are recommending that you update your face masks. The CDC is considering changing its guidance on what kinds of masks work best against this strain of the virus. Although the CDC has yet to weigh in, the Biden administration is saying that surgical-grade masks like the N95s and KN95s should be worn instead of cloth masks. The use of better quality masks is just one tip health officials are pushing to help fight against Omicron. The coronavirus is still in a pandemic stage, according to the World Health Organization. This announcement comes after the Prime Minister of Spain said it may be time to redefine COVID-19 as an endemic. An endemic is when a disease, like the flu, is commonly found in a certain area. The WHO's senior emergency officer for Europe said in a press briefing Tuesday that there is still far too much uncertainty and the virus is evolving much too quickly to define COVID-19 as an endemic at this time. The Arizona Department of Health Services reported 10 new COVID deaths in the state today. That brings the total number of deaths from COVID-19 in Arizona to just over 25,000. The Department of Health Services went to Twitter this morning urging people across the state to get vaccinated, stay home if they're sick, wear face masks, and social distance when indoors. This all comes amid the recent surge in cases caused by the Omicron variant. However, an 11-day streak of increased hospitalizations from COVID-19 ended on Wednesday, when the number dropped to just over 2,900. Indigenous nations and tribal members gathered at the Arizona State Capitol yesterday for the 27th Annual Indian Nations and Tribes Legislative Day. The day started with a networking event where guests met and learned about different organizations. Leaders of many Indian nations gathered inside the Arizona House of Representatives for a joint session. They urged lawmakers to take up issues important to their communities, including improving education, protecting water access, and economic opportunity. Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez emphasized the importance of infrastructure growth on tribal lands, especially because of the impacts of COVID-19.
We're here today to respectfully remind our state legislatures that they receive funding based on population of the state, right? That also includes our citizens on the Navajo Nation. So some of that infrastructure funding should come to Indian country as well.
President Nez says he is looking forward to using infrastructure funding to not only improve roads and bridges, but build new ones. A stroke is one of the leading causes of death and disability in the U.S., and while some are preventable, that's not the case for all. Taiwo Adeshigben reports on one family's unforeseen journey.
I believe in miracles. They were telling us that he was going to be in the NICU for months. They didn't know his story. They didn't know what was going to happen, what was the outcome.
Sarah Guillen's 37-hour labor was only one challenge she would face in becoming baby Maddox's mom. When Maddox entered this world, his face was pale and white, and doctors later learned he had a stroke in the left side of his brain. When he began having seizures, no one knew what his outcome would be. But each passing day, his health continued to improve.
Hope. Sorry, it's a good choke. It's a sign of hope because for the first week we didn't know what was going to happen or if he was going to survive.
According to CDC, perinatal strokes can occur while a baby is in the womb up until 28 days after birth. In the U.S., these strokes account for 1 in every 2,500 to 3,000 live births.
There's nothing that we could say, oh, you should do this or you shouldn't do that as a pregnant woman that we know for sure could lead to stroke. It's never the family's fault.
Borwinkle says it can take up to 2 years for any lasting impacts of a stroke to be seen in babies.
As children start to walk, usually around a year of life, then we may notice something is different or how they develop their language and cognition.
But Maddox, who is now 3, is thriving. His family calls his life a miracle.
The doctors are they're in shock. His neurologist she said there's nothing more she can do for us, that she sees such great improvement in him. He's hitting all his milestones. It's like night and day.
And for Maddox, that village has been there every step of the way.
Just to celebrate him and his life and his journey, because it's been long and hard. And he's a fighter, so we just want to celebrate him and all his accomplishments so far.
In Los Angeles, Taiwo Adeshigben, Cronkite News.
The American Heart Association holds events around the country to celebrate survivors, increase awareness about cardiac and heart-related events, and raise money for research to save lives. Novak Djokovic is still awaiting the decision on whether or not he is allowed to compete in the Australian Open. With Australia's strict vaccination rules in effect, its immigration minister must decide on whether or not Djokovic, who is unvaccinated, should be deported or allowed to stay in the country. Djokovic, who is against getting the COVID vaccine, was exempt from receiving the vaccine since he had COVID in December. The ruling is based on whether or not he has a valid reason for exemption. The Arizona Cardinals have teamed up with BetMGM to create a sportsbook at State Farm Stadium, starting later this year. This marks the first time a sportsbook will be featured at an NFL stadium. With more than 25 betting kiosks, 38 televisions, and a massive video wall, this state-of-the-art two-story sportsbook will have a capacity of over 500 people. It's expected to be open during both event and non-event days, and will also include a sports bar. Construction is now underway and is scheduled to open in time for the start of the 2022 season. And now, here's a look back at some of our top stories from our Cronkite Sports Bureau.
Kristen Muir is known locally as the first female athlete to score a point in an AIA state championship game back in 2015. In January, the former kicker was partially paralyzed in a car accident. Now Muir is back on the field at Marcos de Niza High School. Zach Larson took a trip over to Tempe and took a look at how she's inspiring others.
Kristen Muir was told she may never walk again, but through her hard work and determination, she made sure that wasn't an option. Now, the former high school kicker is helping others by coaching the game she loves.
She runs a tight ship, and you know, she grew up around it. She was part of that team that got to go to the state championship, and she knows what it takes.
She perseveres in what she does, and seeing her Instagram and stuff, if you go and follow it, you can see her pushing herself. So it makes you want to push yourself, and I feel like all the guys are benefiting from that.
Muir's return to the sidelines wasn't the only surprise, as the Arizona Cardinals announced a scholarship that provides $3,000 to 10 graduating student athletes, one of which is in her name. She even gets to pick the recipient. It's an honor Muir wasn't expecting.
I was really surprised at first. I didn't think that it was going to be as huge. And so at first it didn't hit me like at all. But now I'm like, wow, this will be like a legacy kind of thing. And I'm really excited to be helping out athletes around Arizona.
Let's go Padres!
Kristen's father, who is also an assistant coach on the team, is proud of what she's been able to do since her recovery.
I think that's a fantastic legacy, and if that's how her name goes down and how she's remembered at the end of the day, then then that's all you can hope for as a father.
Not only is Kristen inspiring others while coaching on the field, she's hoping to kick one through the uprights again in the near future.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. My therapist said within 5 months we'll do it. Yesterday, actually, with my kicker, I tried kicking one, and I got some height on it, so it was really nice. So yeah, it's definitely gonna happen.
For now, Kristen will continue to coach as she looks to inspire others for years to come. In Tempe, Zachary Larson, Cronkite News.
Top prospects from all 30 MLB teams have come to play in the Arizona Fall League. After a canceled season last year, players have a new appreciation for this opportunity.
When thinking of fall baseball, you generally think of the World Series. However, up-and-coming MLB stars get their chance to shine in the Arizona Fall League.
I think it's just the next step in the process. You know, the competition is good, and so showing that you can be consistent against this level of competition shows that you're one step ready or closer to being ready for the big leagues.
One big difference in Fall League baseball is that your rivals are now your teammates. Each team consists of players from 5 different organizations. With common goals of making it to the bigs, egos do not get in their way.
There's no rivalry here. It's fantastic. I mean, the guys I met, I was very surprised there are no egos in our clubhouse. Everybody gets along really well. We're all just kind of, brothers in arms kind of here. We're all marching towards the same goal. We realize we might be teammates, one day, and if we compete against each other, so be it.
It may seem like baseball in Arizona never ends, but for these players in the Fall League, they say they'll never take playing the game they love for granted.
We're grateful to be back, that's for sure. I think every guy in the locker room can say that. Even though this year for a lot of us has been long with a ton of games played, we've enjoyed every moment of this.
It has been over a month since the Fall League started, and each team has played nearly 30 games. but the players wouldn't want it any other way.
Well, this is what we love to do. You know, I wouldn't rather be anywhere in the world right now than playing baseball here in the Fall League.
The future of baseball plays in the Arizona Fall League, and pretty soon, some of these guys could be playing in a big league park near you. In Scottsdale, Cam Dyer, Cronkite News.
Carl Hayden High School's once struggling football program is making a comeback with its first winning season in 25 years. And as Cronkite News reporter Evan Oshowitz found out, the players responsible for the Falcons' comeback season aren't who you'd expect.
Ready, go!
Carl Hayden Community High School is in the midst of its best football season since the mid-1990s. Led by third-year head coach Steven Arenas, the Falcons have found success with a hard-nosed, run-heavy playing style, and the school has begun to embrace the team once again.
This year, now that we're winning home games, everyone's coming out, so everybody's feeling the football culture like we are.
It's just been so supportive, so cool. You know, I've been here since 2016 as an assistant, and just to see the progression every single year, that's been really rewarding for us.
Many of the Falcons' best players, like rushing leader Kendra Pride and sacks leader Jordan Talbert, are multi-sport athletes who didn't originally plan on playing football. But their contributions are leading the way for Carl Hayden's Renaissance year.
There were some things over at Chavez that I didn't like, and my basketball coach became the head coach over here at Carl Hayden. And at first I was going to be a strictly basketball player, but I decided to play football.
As a result of their contributions, both Pride, a sophomore, and Talbert, a senior, have garnered plenty of attention from Division I schools. And with the amount of talent waiting in the wings for Carl Hayden, it's unlikely they'll be the last ones to get on recruiters' radars.
This year, we might had the most freshmen on Carl Hayden football team there ever been in history. So we have freshmen that are coming up to play with us next year, and we have freshmen that were also injured this year that y'all didn't get to see.
That's one of the biggest things I told our athletic director in getting the job, is just giving our kids an opportunity to get out to the next level, getting college coaches on campus. We got some kids who can play ball and get them opportunities to get an education.
Carl Hayden won't be in the playoffs this year, but a 500 season is a sign of immense progress for the program, and the best may be yet to come for these young Falcons. In Phoenix, Evan Oshowitz, Cronkite News.
Carl Hayden just missed the playoffs, but are excited to build on this year's success.
The Coyotes opened the preseason last night with a 2-1 victory over the LA Kings. The Yotes have a very different looking team from the one that took the ice last season. Evan Oshowitz examined some of the team's roster changes and what kind of impact they could have.
When the Coyotes opened their regular season schedule on October 14th, 5 of their 6 everyday defensemen will be new to the team. Jacob Chikrin is the only returner from last season, and whether or not he can repeat his 18-goal, 41-point performance will depend on whether or not he can adapt to playing with a new partner.
Our group of guys we brought in this year, we've all been skating together for a while. We've been doing kind of little team stuff. I think we've done a good job of it so far. It does feel like I've known a lot of the guys for a while, and I haven't.
Arizona's forward group will also have plenty of new faces. Christian Dvorak and Connor Garland have moved on to different teams, which means players like Christian Fisher and Nick Schmaltz will have to fill the void left by their departures.
No secret, there's 15, 16 new guys in this locker room, and change is scary, but it's fun. I think it's fun to see new faces, new personalities, new coach, pretty much a whole new everything.
It's a great opportunity for everybody. I think we got guys trying to take the next step in their careers, and guys are going to get more opportunities, whether it's playing time or different situations. So I think guys can take a step in that way, and be one of the go-to guys, and get to play minutes that maybe you didn't get to play before.
The Coyotes have only a few weeks until opening night to build cohesion, and their ability to do so may end up determining their results this season. In Glendale, Evan Oshowitz, Cronkite News.
The Coyotes face the Ducks tomorrow night in another preseason matchup. They start the regular season in Columbus on October 14th.
And Arizona isn't exactly a hotbed for Olympic curlers, but one local team made a push to Beijing. Cronkite sports reporter Andrea Aguilera has more on the uncommon journey these curlers took through the Olympic trials.
For Team Stiggins of Tempe, there was one benefit to COVID-19. Getting a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to compete in the Olympic Trials Series, the first team from Arizona to take part in the competition.
When they froze the world rankings due to COVID, we got our invitation while literally sitting on the couch. Being from the desert, there isn't a whole lot of opportunity for people to have done it before us.
With the rink closed due to the pandemic, the odds were stacked against Team Siggins, but the curlers knew they couldn't pass up the chance to try and make the Olympics.
Mike wanted to go, and I helped talk the other two guys into going, because the experience is something you only get once in every 4 years. Who knows how long you're going to have that opportunity, and they're good enough to be there.
Although Team Siggins ended their Olympic dream run, their dreams to continue in the sport remain at this facility.
We all want to wear USA on our back. That's kind of the dream that we all have.
And maybe one day, these curlers from Arizona can sweep their way into the Olympic Games. In Tempe, Andrea Aguilera, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Next on Break It Down, what the NCAA's policy on compensation could mean for college athletes and universities. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication's Phoenix Sports Bureau provides students with hands-on learning experiences and opportunities in sports journalism. From covering local high schools, colleges, and the pros, students get the opportunity to go live from our Facebook shows covering local, collegiate, and pro sports in the Valley. From digital reporting, broadcast, social media, and producing, there's opportunities for all. For more, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream. For the first time ever, our most popular programs have been selected just for you.
But there's so much more.
Whether you like to travel,
wow,
feast,
and calories don't count.
Look back.
That is me.
Discover.
And you know the whole story.
There's something for everyone.
Let's get to it right away.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Paula Bovin, thank you for joining us. Today we're going to break it down on the recent news coming from the NCAA that essentially says college athletes can profit off of their fame for the very first time. Paula, this has been a conversation for many years now. Start us off. Tell us, why is this rule change so monumental?
It's huge, Aaliyah, and part of the reason we knew this was coming, and the NCAA has fought so hard to keep it from happening. But, you know, this is a free enterprise society. They should have that opportunity. So it's monumental in the sense that the NCAA has to re-examine how it does everything. But there's also some scary things possibly happening too. So that, I think that feeling of the unknown is what makes it so strange and exciting at the same time.
Yes, I've heard many people almost describe this new rule change as chaotic, is the word that I've read, not only, you know, from athletes, but also policymakers who say there could be some issues with implementing this new rule. Can you tell us essentially what athletes can do now that the NCAA has changed this rule? What does it mean for them?
Yeah, well, like you said, they can profit off their name, image, and likeness now. So here's some perfect examples. A walk-on football player at TCU, Texas Christian, is going to start, hyping up a local restaurant in Texas, and he can profit off the sales of that ad. There are twins from Fresno State who are basketball players, but have been Instagram stars for years and TikTok stars for years. They do these really funny TikTok videos. They've already gotten a 5-figure deal to promote supplements because they already had this big fan base. So while People were wondering how this is going to translate. I think, Aaliyah, for some athletes, it's translating really well right now.
Oh yeah, and the other thing that athletes can do now is, sell autographs and photos and merchandise. And I think particularly for big sports, say, college basketball and football in the South, that's gonna, as you mentioned, translate into some pretty big numbers, I imagine.
It will. And I think you brought up a really interesting point, because while the Alabamas of the world, who are already thriving, with their money, with their football program, people are going to want to start going to the schools where they feel like they can benefit more. So this is one of the challenges I see. There's like maybe a high school football player who's a star will choose to go to maybe a city or a community where there's the opportunity to make more money. So does this mean the smaller schools around the country that don't have maybe the thriving programs or are located in the middle of a Midwest state, are they going to suffer because athletes aren't going to want to go to schools like that because they're not going to be able to make money? So there are a lot of questions are coming up about this.
Absolutely. I saw a couple experts actually say that recruiting now in certain states is going to be very interesting because, some states don't have state income tax. And so in those states, an athlete who makes money could essentially, keep a huge chunk of change of whatever endorsement that they get. And recruiting is just going to be a whole other factor in this entire conversation. The other part that I wanted to ask you about was essentially, athletes who could really use this money. I think that's an important part of this conversation is that some athletes go to college and maybe they can't work a part-time job. Maybe, they come from a household that doesn't make a lot of money. And essentially this can help some athletes.
No, and I was just going to bring that up. I mean, I think, some people assume these athletes are getting these great academic scholarships, athletic scholarships. They don't have to worry about tuition. They don't have to worry about food. And that's true, but it doesn't mean they should be limited to hold a job if they want to, or to make some money, to have some spending money, because as you suggested, there are a lot of athletes that don't come from environments where they're so economically comfortable. And there's a lot of sports like baseball, like track and field, a lot of the Olympic sports, most of the athletes, even at big universities, don't get full scholarships. They get partial scholarships, yet they were held back by the NCAA for being able to find ways to earn money. And so they had to rely on parents, or they had to struggle a bit in school. So I think that's a real positive about this.
I want to take a step back very quickly and sort of talk about why this was a contentious issue. So for many years, the NCAA was saying one thing and athletes were saying another. Can you sort of brief us on both sides of this issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of it has to do with the schools wanted the right to make money. When you see that jersey on the back of an ASU player, ASU basketball player like Remy Martin, for example, who used to play at ASU, they wanted to benefit off those jersey sales, right? You go in the team shop, there's Remy Martin on the back of the jersey. So schools really wanted that money for themselves, and understandably, I mean, that's how, it's not cheap to run an athletic department and have teams. But I mean, if we're going to be fair and if we're going to be reflective of a country that believes in free enterprise, it really, when you look at it, doesn't make sense. And I think, I understand their concerns too, because there is going to be things that aren't regulated, and these athletes, you mentioned like going to states without taxes and things like that, which I thought was a great point. It's also the point of these athletes, maybe they're going to make money, but do they know anything about taxes? How many of these athletes have studied finance? Suddenly they're going to make money, but do they know how much to set aside? I certainly didn't pay attention to that in college. I'm sure you were much smarter, Aaliyah, and did that, but I mean, the numbers are things they're going to have to be educated on.
We only have a couple seconds left together, but I want to touch quickly on the concerns and the dangers that you mentioned. What are you looking out for? What concerns do you have in mind?
Well, the one the one we briefly touched on and you brought up about recruiting, I think is big, because I think certain schools are going to benefit from recruiting because of this. The other thing that worries me a little bit is female athletes, and some of the ones that are being approached are the ones that are attractive, the ones that have these TikTok accounts and social media, and that's great. But when I've looked at some of the things that they're being asked to endorse, they're in bikinis, or the sex is being sold as versus the athleticism, and we have fought so hard, as women, to be taken seriously, whether it's in sports or journalism or anything else. And there's a danger, at least for me, that they're going to go after attractive women. They're going to ask them to dress more seductively, and then they're going to benefit from it. So that's a little bit of a concern for me.
Well, Paula, we will definitely continue to watch this issue. Thank you so much for breaking it down with us today.
Great to talk to you.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.
She's the White House correspondent for the PBS NewsHour.
It has been a historic and traumatic week in Washington, D.C.
Former reporter for the New York Times, political analyst for NBC, and multimedia journalist at USA Today.
Join me this week and every week for a critical look at this week's top news stories.
Yamiche Alcindor, the new moderator of Washington Week.
Friday nights at 7 on Arizona PBS.